and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time to talk about the biggest game week of this season so far, Double Game Week 25. We're going to be sharing some tips, some information, and just a guide of how to approach this game week and make the most of it because it's going to be a big week, like I said. Guys, if you enjoy this one, do make sure you leave a like, do subscribe. I'm excited to get started. Let's get going. So first of all, a look at the fixtures. We've got 4 teams doubling this game week. We've got Brentford, they play Liverpool and City. Liverpool play Brentford and Luton. Luton play United, and Liverpool and Man City play against Chelsea and Brentford. So varying degrees of fixture difficulty there. Let's put this in order of who has the best fixtures and who has the worst fixtures. And I think straight away, Liverpool, very obvious that they have the best fixtures here. Brentford kind of a mid-level team to be playing, but that Luton Town at home game is going to hopefully be a game of many goals for Liverpool. They've definitely got some opportunity to score some goals there. We've got Man City against Chelsea and Brentford, 2 home games, which is actually really nice. It's not very often necessarily that you get a big team like Man City with a double game week of home games. So very nice indeed. Chelsea and Brentford, obviously 2 teams that have been conceding a fair amount of goals recently, so could be a real advantage for Man City in that double game week. But I do think Liverpool's double is just slightly better because of that home game against Luton. As for Luton, a little bit trickier with Man United and Liverpool. So Man United kind of, they're doing pretty well at the moment. Let's be honest. Man United finding some form. And Luton, despite the fact that they are scoring goals at the moment, they are still struggling defensively. So I do think that maybe we could have a bit of a banana skin kind of double game week on our hands here. But maybe there are some nuggets of players that we like. And we will be speaking about them very, very shortly. For Brentford, we've got Liverpool and Man City. This is pretty much the worst double game week you could have. I mean, so much so is, can we even call it a double game week? This is a horror show, isn't it? It's pretty much as good as any single game week for Brentford, but again, still, there are some players that are worth considering. So before we go on to some more general tips around this double game week, I want to talk about some transfer targets for each of the double game week teams and maybe some players we should be avoiding as well. So we're going to be dividing these picks into 3 categories. We've got your essential players. They are great game week 25, must-have options. Got to have these players in your team if you want to make the most of this. We've got some optional players, potentially some solid options. Could be some sleeper options in there that maybe not everyone owns, but could help you get an edge. And then we've got the punts, the players that not too many people are going to be owning, but maybe it could be sly little players to sneak in for the double that could provide a little bit of spice to your team and maybe some points alongside that spice. That would be pretty nice. So let's go team by team and have a look at some of these picks. So starting off with the big dogs at Liverpool with their double game against Brentford and Luton. I think that there is 2 players I would consider not necessarily essential. Maybe I've been a bit generous by labeling them as essential, but what I do think is that it's essential to have one of Jota and Darwin. I cannot see a world in which I could go into game week 25 and feel comfortable and feel prepared and feel ready if I didn't have at least one of Jota and Darwin, because these are the guys who are getting all the points, all the goals, all the assists at the moment in this Liverpool team. These are by far the top scoring FPL assets in that Liverpool attack during this period where Salah has been out of the team. They're not too expensive either, both fairly affordable players that you can get into your team as well. You need to get them in. They are in good form. Now, we've got Luis Diaz here as an option as well. I know people will be looking at Diaz after game week 24, scoring some decent points in game week 24, but what we've seen in general is that Jota and Darwin have been more consistent, and particularly, the Jota versus Diaz debate, for me, it's Jota. Jota actually has just dropped slightly below the kind of underlying numbers below Diaz. Diaz actually put up some really good numbers last game, has put him slightly ahead of Jota. However, the problem is Jota is far more clinical. He plays in more central and dangerous areas, so he's always ready in those decent positions to get those attacking kind of returns. I feel like he has more avenues of getting FPL points as well, Diogo Jota. So I still would much prefer to go for Jota than Diaz if possible. Can Diaz cover Jota? Maybe. Can he cover both Jota and Darwin? In my opinion, no. So Luis Diaz, definitely a player you can add to your team, but only after you've already sorted yourself out a Jota or a Darwin. Extra points if you can get both of the top options here. Now, outside of that, we've got Van Dijk and Alisson. What I'm really looking for from Liverpool is some nailed-on players in the double game week. That is hard to come by with this Liverpool team, but certainly Van Dijk and Alisson would be probably the only 2 nailed-on defenders there. I think Brentford and Luton aren't like the worst fixtures for when you're looking for clean sheets, but I don't think 2 clean sheets is guaranteed either. You'd be pretty fortunate if you did manage to get back-to-back clean sheets in this double game week, but the only way you're going to do that is by going through these those double game week players who are also nailed on, because there are a few other players that we might want to talk about from Liverpool. Now, first of all, the right right backs, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Connor Bradley. I think they'll play one game each, so I would not look to buy either Trent or Bradley. If you already have Trent, then you probably keep him, but because of Trent's kind of injury situation at the moment, he's not fully fit. Now we've got a double game week, and then we've got the League Cup final against Chelsea immediately after the double game week. We could probably see Trent getting rested in one of these games. I do expect that to happen. Obviously, Bradley has been very good when he's played as well, so deserves an opportunity. So I would imagine that maybe Trent plays the more difficult game against Brentford, and Bradley actually comes in for the easier fixture against Luton. So maybe Trent, his appeal has reduced, and I would prefer to go for a Van Dijk at the moment. Robertson is maybe worth a punt on some of those set pieces, but not super confident about him as a pick. Could see him rotated with Tsimikas, who's back now, and obviously Gomez can play out there as well. Speaking of Gomez, Gomez, Kanate, super rotation risk. Kelleher, Alisson's going to come back into the Liverpool team after recovering from flu, so Kelleher is going to be back out again, which leaves one more player to talk about, and that's Mo Salah. Now, Mo Salah is expected to either return to parts of training with the first team this week or next week. So we're not exactly sure if he's even going to be available for game week 25 or not. It's possible that he is, maybe can get a few minutes against Luton, but we're not expecting very much from him. If you already have Salah, then you could maybe be tempted to keep him. But if you haven't got Salah already, I really would wait till after this game week, and then maybe after the blank as well in game week 26. So game week 27 is really when we'll be looking at Salah again. I just don't think it's quite time to get him back into your team yet. Can't see him playing too many minutes, so perhaps an avoid really alongside some of the other players that I mentioned. Trent, probably don't buy, don't sell. Salah, don't buy, don't sell. Many other Liverpool players, don't buy, don't sell. And I think the only players I would actively buy would be the 5 you see in front of you on screen right now. For Man City, Erling Haaland is essential. There is no way of getting around this simple fact of life. If you go into this double game week without Erling Haaland in your team, you are going to be in huge trouble. He has just arrived back from injury, back in goal-scoring form with 2 goals against Everton, right in the nick of time. Perfect timing for this double game week of home fixtures against a Chelsea team that obviously they do concede goals at the moment. They are not a great team defensively, and we've got this Brentford side at home who Man City have already put a few goals past just a week ago. So this is a great double game week for an Erling Haaland. It really, really is. He's back. He's on penalties. He is, elite forward, doing super, super well in that last game. He's back, and you guys, you make sure whatever you do, you get him for this game week. I can't imagine a world without him. I really can't. I need him. I love him. I really do. Anyway, aside from Erling Haaland, who we all know is essential, De Bruyne and Foden are the obvious kind of forward attackers, kind of players to go for this game week. If we're looking again at double game weeks for a team like Man City, who are rotation prone, we want to look at the most nailed on attackers, and De Bruyne and Foden fit that criteria the best. De Bruyne is going to play most games when available, just coming off the back of a bit of a rest, even when he did come off on the pitch on that Everton game late on in the game after having his rest. Well, he provided immediately with an assist, didn't he? So that shows how good he is. And Foden is as nailed as anyone in this Man City team at the moment. He's doing so well, particularly when he's playing in those more central areas and is able to cut inside with maybe De Bruyne on the pitch, maybe having Bernardo Silva out wide. That is really when Foden super thrives. We saw it a little bit at the end of that Everton game as well. So he's going to be really dangerous going into this double game week as well. So ideally, guys, you would have the top 3 on this list. But I think for most people, I think you're going to be absolutely fine to just take Haaland and one of De Bruyne and Foden. If you've got that sorted, you're going to be very happy indeed this game week. Outside of that, a couple of punts. Nathan Ake you could potentially go for. Seems reasonably nailed on at the moment, more so than other defenders, and provides a little bit of attacking threat. And Edison maybe as a punt as well, but I would be less confident in these Man City defensive players than I would Liverpool players, because I look at Chelsea, I look at Brentford, and I think both of these teams are capable of scoring goals, and Man City are prone to conceding goals, aren't they? So yeah, wouldn't go too hard on Man City defence. I think I would prioritise the attack. Now, outside of the players on screen, we've got the likes of Alvarez, who I think is a thing of the past a little bit. We've spoken a lot about Alvarez on this channel recently, but certainly would not be looking to buy Alvarez anymore. If you already have him, you maybe keep him, as long as it doesn't mean sacrificing Haaland. Haaland is the priority. Walker, Gvardiol, if you have them already, you possibly keep them, but again, they've shown to be rotation risk recently. As for avoids, Players like Rodri, Doku, Bernardo would not be touching those players really. You know, there doesn't seem to be much point in going for rotation risk Doku and Bernardo when you can get a Foden. And Rodri is obviously, he's a defensive midfielder, and I feel like he doesn't really maximise the points potential that there really is, a very high points potential for Game Week 25 for Man City. And I feel like with Rodri, you know, we're probably looking at sitting at 4 or 5 pointer. You might, you know, be fortunate in getting an assist or a goal in that, but he's not going to have the high ceiling of a Haaland, De Bruyne, Foden, or even some of the rotation risk kind of wingers, other midfielders potentially there. So yeah, Haaland is the guy. De Bruyne and Foden would be great to have as well. Ake and Edison are maybe punts. Outside of that, probably not looking at too many Man City players. For Luton Town, they play Man United and Liverpool and then have a blank game week. So be warned if you are going for Luton players. It's a tough game week. I think the big takeaway from Luton is that they are still very poor defensively. They are capable of scoring goals though. And Adebayo in particular has been a guy who has been scoring against actually some of the bigger teams recently. So at 4.9 million, I think it's definitely a decent option. And at that price, you can afford to bench him for future game weeks as well. He can just sit on those on your bench for future game weeks, particularly the blank game week 26, and you know, you'll absolutely be fine with that one. And he could, you know, provide a little bit in the double. He's, you know, scoring goals, getting assists recently. Outside of that, a couple more attackers. Got Barkley, obviously putting up some good numbers at the moment. Nice cheap price. Morris on penalties. He's scored in his last couple of games for Luton as well since he's come back into the first team. So he could potentially be a player to go for. You know, a double game week penalty taker is always very, very nice indeed. Outside of that, you know, I know people will look at defenders, but I can't really see myself going outside of Doughty. And I wouldn't pick Doughty because he's a defender. I pick him because his creative numbers are just insane. He is one of the best attackers from Luton, despite being listed as a defender. He really plays up as more of a winger, really, on that left-hand side. Obviously, he's on set pieces as well, which is very, very nice. But you don't own him for his clean sheets. Kaminsky, you don't own him for his clean sheets as well. You're hoping for save points, really, for Kaminsky. And maybe, you know, you get, you know, there's always a chance of a clean sheet, but it's super, super low with Luton. So those of you guys who are thinking about, you know, maybe going for a Bell because he's very, very cheap, wouldn't go there because he's probably, you know, going to concede 2 goals in each of these games, and then he's on a 2-pointer for a double game week. You may as well just have a single game week player in that case. And Kabore, I know some people maybe look at him, maybe you've already got him. Ogbene looks like he's got the starting place at right wing back now. Ogbene's been playing really well, so I don't think Kabore is going to be getting too much game time necessarily. So again, Bells, Kabores, you know, other defenders from Luton, would not be looking at them. Even if I have them, I would probably still be looking to bench them this game week. So it really is about the attackers for Luton, if you can maybe squeeze one of them into your team. For Brentford, like I said, they have a really tough double game week. And for a very tough double game week, you need a fixture-proof player. And Tony is that guy, you know, on penalties, obviously returning with a bit of form recently as well. A little bit of form, at least. His numbers aren't super, super good at the moment, but they are decent. They are decent enough. And I think that's going to continue to improve over the subsequent game weeks. Now, this is a tough double game week. I wouldn't let that put you off Tony too much, because one of the great advantages of these Brentford players is they double in game week 25, and then they don't blank in 26, and they don't blank in 29 either. So you've got a nice long-term pick. So you might be buying a player for a double, or you might, in Brentford's case, be buying them for the double, which is, okay, I guess it's it's okay. You know, we've got a double at least. It's not a great double, we've got a double at least, but you're also buying a player who you can just hold through, cover yourself for future blanks, which is the real advantage of going for Brentford players. And if you are looking to cover the future blanks, then why not go for a Brentford player this week and at least chance your luck for the tough double game week, you know. Outside of Tony, the other attackers don't really appeal to me, to be honest. I think Morpay could rotate with Wissa. Now he's back, and the midfielders are very, very sporadic with their points. So I wouldn't really be touching the midfielders at Brentford. Defenders, not expecting too much against Liverpool and City. I expect Brentford will concede, but Pinnock has a little bit of attacking threat. Reguilon is on corners and he's playing quite advanced. You know, he'll be playing, you know, probably as part of a back five, left wing back, pretty high up against the likes of Liverpool and Man City. So Reguilon, I can see him doing okay. And at 4.4 million, it's a decent price for him. Like I say, you would be mostly picking him up for future game weeks as well as this double game week. And Flecken, respect to Flecken, poor season, but the last 2 game weeks, probably been his best too in a Brentford shirt. Clean sheet in 24, did really well against Man City, making plenty of saves there as well. Flecken actually might be a player for the future that we need to keep an eye on. And again, if you're looking for a new goalkeeper for the long term, for the future, maybe go for Flecken now whilst he's got this double, even if you don't expect clean sheets, because you'll set yourself up for future game weeks. So yeah, Flecken, actually don't mind him, but remember guys, do not expect clean sheets from Brentford this week, and Tony is probably going to be the only attacker worth looking at as well. I know people will be asking me about more pay. I ain't touching him, guys. No chance. Some of you guys will know very well why I won't be touching more pay. Leave a comment if you know. So let's just summarize, guys. Here are my top 10 picks for Game Week 25. This will be my top 10 transfer targets in order of priority. Erling Haaland, obviously number one. Very, very obvious there. So get him into your team. After that, we'll be looking at Darwin and Jota. Want to be getting at least one of them for Liverpool's great double game week. Outside of that, it's De Bruyne and Foden. So we really are looking at the Man City and Liverpool best attackers. Those are the players you want for Game Week 25. I think there is a heavy emphasis this game week on attackers, because I think for a lot of these teams, the fixtures are better from an attacking point of view than from a defensive point of view. So I really will be prioritizing attackers in the double game week. Forwards and midfielders, not so much defenders and goalkeepers. Tony here, I may be being a little bit harsh on Tony, putting him in 6th, because if we're looking for nailedness and nailed on player in the double, then Tony is an 180-minute man for Game Week 25, so that's 4 points already for doing nothing, and a little penalty might change that. Penalties are always good, aren't they? Double the opportunity to get the penalties in a double game week. Luis Diaz is going to be up there as well. Adebayo, do kind of like the look of him at a nice cheap price. And at the bottom here, Van Dijk, Alisson. Like I say, the defensive players, pretty low priority for the double game week. So guys, let me know in the comments how many of this top 10 picks for Game Week 25 are you going to have by the Game Week 25 deadline? Are you going to have 5, 6, 7? Are you going to have 1, 2, 3? I don't know, guys. Let me know. And which ones are you going to have as well? How many out of the top 10? Guys, I tell you, if you have 5 or more, I think you're in a good spot. So just some other general tips for Game Week 25. So this is probably going to be the best game week for your triple captainship. Now, assuming you want to triple captain Haaland or Salah, the only 2 double game weeks that City and Liverpool are likely to have is going to be this game week or Game Week 37. Game Week 37, often, you know, a bit of rotation there maybe, but more importantly, the projected fixtures don't look so great for City and Liverpool for double game week 37. So if you are looking to captain Haaland or Salah, you know, one of the big players, that's obvious triple captain type of player, then this game week might be the one. In 37, City are going to play Fulham away and probably Spurs away based on projections. So 2 away fixtures, not the most amazing away fixtures. Obviously, City don't like playing Spurs. Liverpool, they're going to play away against Villa and probably Fulham away there as well. So again, they're not ideal fixtures necessarily that you would want to triple captain Salah in. Outside of that, there are maybe a couple options. Solanke in game week 28 for a triple captain. Saka could have a double game week in 34. Don't think it's going to be an amazing double, but he probably will double in 34. And maybe Cole Palmer or Son at some point. They're looking like they're going to double in 36, I think, and 37 maybe as well. So yeah, we're going to see double game weeks for Chelsea and Spurs. Palmer, Son, these are going to be kind of players for the future. But like I say, if you want to captain a Haaland or a Salah, now is your opportunity. Play that triple captain chip now. This could also be a week to consider bench boosting if you think you have a really strong bench. Future game weeks don't look so great for a bench boost as maybe they have done in previous seasons as things stand. There's nothing wrong with boosting single game week players either, particularly if you've recently wildcarded or you are not going to have a wildcard in the late season. It's going to be harder to set up for a bench boost later on, so maybe this is your opportunity. Be aware that Liverpool and Luton players blank in 26. If you are buying Luton players in particular for their double, but then find that you're playing with less than 11 men next week, it's not really a double, is it? You know, 2 fixtures this game week, 0 fixtures next game week. That is on average of 1 fixture per game week. So if you look at the fixtures then, like the actual fixtures themselves, Man United and Liverpool, maybe it doesn't look so good. So only really buy Luton players if you find that you can cover them for game week 26 as well. Try and view 25 and 26 as kind of a pair, which will, you know, you kind of work out which players you might have to, you know, sacrifice in game week 26 to make game week 25 work. Can you do it both? Maybe you need a free hit or a wild card in game week 26 to make it work. That's going to kind of be up to you. That's not going to be for everyone. Now, if you are selling players, it might be worth selling Chelsea and Spurs players now because they blank next week, and Newcastle players who don't blank next week, but they do play Arsenal next week, which is going to be a bit of a tough one. If you are not wildcarding before game week 29 or free hitting on game week 29, you should try and keep Spurs players, but obviously they are players you could potentially sell. But Spurs, one of the few good teams that actually have a fixture in Game Week 29 as things stand. Again, if you're not wildcarding before Game Week 29 or free hitting on Game Week 29, you should probably try and keep hold of Villa and West Ham players, even if you leave them on your bench, because Villa and West Ham are the other two fairly decent teams that do currently have a fixture in Game Week 29, so they are going to be useful players to have in the long term. 5 double game week players, like I say, is enough. I think any less, I would be a little bit worried, but if you've got 5 players from my top 10 list, I would feel very happy, I would feel very comfortable. I think you're done, I think you're ready to go. Really, really do. Ideally, the 5 players would be in that top 10, though. You know, if you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold or someone like that, then you might want to add an additional one, because maybe you have a little bit of fear around Trent, potentially. That's up to you. If you have 6 or 7, you may actually be in trouble for future game weeks, especially if they are Luton or Liverpool players, because obviously they blank next game week. So I think 5 is enough. I think any of your rivals who potentially have 6 or 7 or 8 might be in trouble next week. Unless they're free hitting next week, they might actually be in trouble next week. So you might actually have an advantage of them by not going in too hard. So yeah, again, are you going to have to take -4s if you want to get these players in and then remove them again next week? At that point, does it become worth it? Maybe. There's lots of debate to be had there. But yeah, just be careful, guys. I think 5 is enough. And particularly triple Man City would be great. Brentford players are great as well because they don't blank, and a little bit of Liverpool, maybe a tiny bit of Luton there as well, can really complete your set of double game week players. But guys, be aware of potential hits you might have to take in 26 to rectify the situation, and question, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Particularly with defenders, probably not. So there is your Game Week 25 guide. Very looking forward to this game week. It's going to be a huge one. Plenty more videos to come this game week. So guys, make sure you drop a like if you did enjoy this one. Subscribe if you're new around here. And 2 more things. First of all, Nigerians, good luck in the AFCON tonight. By the time this video comes out, the game would have probably already started. I will be cheering on Nigeria from home. Hopefully we get the W. And Americans and people who maybe aren't American as well, enjoy the Super Bowl tonight, because that's on, and that's a very, very big deal around America and elsewhere as well. So guys, enjoy football, Super Bowl, and I will catch you tomorrow for another video and a stream. See you later, mates. Bye bye.